Let's discuss the issue, an important issue on gun control. And you say, well, is that an important issue, especially to a pastor and a Christian? My goodness, folks, yes. You know, every law we have in our Constitution, both state and federal, were based upon biblical principle at one time, and that is a fact. And I can prove to you in a much greater detail someday in a biblical teaching, which, by the way, are available if you want them at our ministry. But the right to keep and bear arms does not come from the government. It doesn't come from the Constitution. It comes from a God-given right to the people for protection of themselves, their property, and their country. Now, if you read Exodus 22, verse 2, you will find in there first mention, that one of the first places the Bible mentioned, where a man has a right to use deadly force to protect his property. Please read the verse for yourself, Exodus 22, verse 2. You'll find in Numbers chapter 1 in the Bible where our forefathers got the idea of the civilian militia. Yes, the word militia is a good word. It's not a bad word. It's been used by the media in this country in the last few years. The militia is a godly use of a word. It is mentioned not in the Bible itself, but in Numbers chapter 1 it mentions the civilian numbering of the men to use as what we call the state guard at the time. Tribes are used then, of course, as the men in the tribes to protect their homes and their property and their nation. That's Numbers chapter 1. Please read it for yourself. Also in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, you'll find a commandment given there, a statement given, that if we do not provide for our own, especially those of our household, then we have denied the faith and are worse than an infidel. Now, my friends, I'm a pastor, so I use Scripture a lot to prove a lot of valid points. The word provide there, if you look up in the 1828 Webster Dictionary, which we have here at the ministry also, you will find the word provide not only means to give provision for food and shelter, but also a means of protection. We are given a commandment by our Creator to defend our families, our properties, which, by the way, all belong to Him. They're given to us for our blessings, but they're His. And so we are also given, of course, in the Constitution, in the federal Constitution and the state Constitution, the guarantee of the right to keep and bear arms. We have in laws right now over 20,000 gun control laws in this nation, federal and state. Now, I will say this as straightforwardly as I can put this. As governor, there will be no gun control laws in this state. People will be free to carry and to exercise their right of self-protection within the means of lawful reason. Every citizen will have the right to keep and bear arms. The federal Constitution. If you want to look up on the wall in my office, by the way, where I'm doing this teaching from, or I was just talking from, you will see on the wall there not only a couple guns that I have, but the Second Amendment, Article 2 of the federal Constitution. It says, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the militia, my friends, as I just mentioned from the Bible, Numbers chapter 1, are the private citizens of the state, outlined in the federal Constitution and state Constitution of men, it does mention men, of ages 18 to 45 in the federal Constitution. Please look this up for yourself. Militia, state militia was started way back in the 1700s and earlier in this country, and that's where our forefathers got the idea of the Second Amendment to keep the civilians armed for the protection of their properties, of the state, and to be under the head of the governor of the state. Now, this is vitally important that you understand this. Article 2 of the West Virginia Constitution states in Section 22 of the right of the people to keep and bear arms. That's not only Article 2 of the federal Constitution, but also in the state Constitution, that right is written there. It's not granted there. The state cannot grant rights. If they grant rights, then they can take away rights. Rights, that's an oxymoron. A right is a right. And according to our forefathers, they're unalienable rights. I mean, they cannot be taken away. They cannot be even given away. They're ours. So if it's a right, it's not a privilege. If the state makes it a privilege, then it's not a right. Gun control in all areas is totally unconstitutional and unbiblical. The greatest societies, I should say the greatest and the most peaceful societies, that have the lowest crime rates are the states that have the most armed citizens. And I'm really thankful to say that West Virginia is one of those states. We have one of the lowest crime rates in the nation, if not the lowest, because we have a lot of people in the state who still exercise their right to keep and bear arms. Now, on the issue of the militia, which I think is vitally important that we clear this up. In the state constitution, I want to read to you, if I could, very quickly, on the issue of militia. And my friends, we must get back to the Constitution. We must. It's essential. We must do that. This says this, in Article 7, Section 12, the governor shall be the commander-in-chief of the military forces of the state. That is the civilian militia. It is not the National Guard. The word national takes it away from the state. It's the state guard. And except when called to a lawful declared war by the Congress, the governor has absolute control over of the state militia, and it has the sole authority to call forth the militia for protection of the state, to suppress insurrections or necessary military needs. But all this is under the idea of the Second Amendment of the Constitution, the federal Constitution, the state Constitution. The militia is a lawful body of citizens of each state. Now, there are uniformed militia, and then there are civilian militia. Both are constitutional and biblical. But standing armies in the time of peace, according to Thomas Jefferson, are a bane to society. When a nation keeps a standing army to quell, we'll say, insurrection or keep the people in control, that is against the law of what we call posse comitatus. That, and by the way, also in the state constitution, you'll find that the civilian government is superior to the military law, because civilian government is mandated by the people. Military law is mandated by the state or the federal authorities. Posse comitatus is an act passed in the late 1880s to get the federal government out of the state's business and get the military out of the states so they could run the states once again as independent sovereign entities, as it was found in this Constitution to start with.